This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We want to say thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. And remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. Make sure you leave us a 5-star review. Anything less than that is unacceptable. You got to let them know what time it is when it's talking about making sure you guys spread the word and what we got. You guys have been doing a really good job of that. Thank you for that as well. We're almost at 3,000 subscribers. We set a goal, and you guys have listened, and you guys have been doing your part. So we're going to do our part by entertaining you today. By starting off by talking about Georgia got a little love in at one position group, but we're going to talk about whether or not they should have got some love at a position group they've been known for. We'll talk about that. And Roquan Smith requested a trade. How would he look in a black and red uniform? We'll talk about that. And last but not least, the GOAT has decided to hang them up. We'll talk about that in For the Culture. But first, like I said, the Braves are right now, tonight, are going to get ready to take on the Boston Red Sox. Charlie Morton's going to be on the mound. Mm-hmm. And, coming off of losing 4 out of 5 games, I think the Braves need to get a win tonight.
I think so too. And when you look at the stretch that they're going on, being in Boston and also then going to Miami, I'm not trying to be funny, but That should be 6-0.
No doubt.
You need to come off this road trip 7-4, and the way you do that is to beat the teams that you're supposed to. Now, one thing I will say about the Braves have actually done that this season. Right. So They have beaten the Marlins. They have beaten the Red Sox, and they should be able to do it again tonight because going up against Charlie Morton is Rich Hill, made his first start over a month, right? And that was about a week ago. Didn't go so well. He only lasted 3 innings. He allowed 4 runs on just 6 hits. And granted, that was the Astros, but we're about right up there as far as talent level goes. So I expect the same from the Braves. And I do think the Braves are on mission. Sometimes, Jarvis, you just need a sobering, like what happened to them in that series against the Mets, for you to get back on track and that way sort of tune yourself up everywhere, whether that's on the pitching mound, whether that's at the plate, or whether that's in the infield or outfield. That way, when the Mets come to town next week, we ready.
No doubt about it. And you got to get some of the guys that have been struggling, like Marcell Ozuna. He has to figure out a way to be of some value at this point because we already know what the contract is. We already know how he struggled as of late, and he didn't do anything in that Met series, and it's time for him to step up. I'll just leave it at that.
But I agree with you, Jarvis, because you got to do it somewhere. If you're going to be left shark in left field, then we at least need you to be better than 125 at the plate. Got to set that up.
Absolutely ridiculous. But what's not ridiculous is if you need a little help, you're in a pinch, go out and check out that Dave app. Tell them about that Dave app and what they have going on and how they can help you out.
Yeah, that Dave app is really cool because honestly, we're coming out of a pandemic, so we're still in a bit of a crunch, if you will, many of us, in terms of needing some finances quickly. Now, we have gotten some reprieve on the gas prices, right? But there's still a lot of things that are being affected by inflation. So if you're one of those people who might need a little bit of help, that is where Dave can help you. Now, a friend of mine used to always say that there's no stress like financial stress, and that's a fact. So Dave can help you. Now, hindsight is 20/20, so you can't necessarily go back, but he can help you to move forward, maybe with you borrowing a little bit of cash. But get this, it's a banking app that you can use, and it can help you to get $500 instantly with extra cash. You can finally tackle those things that have been stressing you out. But the important part is no interest and no credit check needed. Millions of people have already downloaded this app, and we suggest that you do the same. If you're in a pinch, you download that app from the store just after you finish watching ATL Day Ones, and then you go DAVE just to make sure you got it right. Sign up for the extra cash account, get the $500 instantly. And of course, there are terms and conditions. So for those, you go to dave.com/legal. Instant transfer fees do apply. Banking provided by Evolve, member FDIC. But guess what? Your future will thank you.
No doubt about it. And speaking of the Georgia Bulldogs' future looks pretty bright because they were voted in an article by ESPN. Like it's called College Football's Position U. Now, for those who don't know, a lot of times, schools get referred to as Position Group U. For example, LSU was kind of referred to as DBU when you had guys like Patrick Peterson, Tyrann Mathieu, and all those guys getting drafted into the NFL. And ESPN released their latest one, and they said that Georgia was given the crown of linebacker U, which kind of makes sense, given like you had guys like Roquan Smith and Kobe Dean getting drafted in the 3rd round last year. So they've had a lot of talent at their position come out. But should they have been given the crown at another position group though?
Yeah, I think so. But first of all, starting off, like you said, with our agreement that they are LBU. And
no doubt, yeah.
Because when you look at the top 5, of course, you're going to have the usual suspects of Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, right? And then I started looking at the names because, once you get past like Trayvon Walker and you get past Quay Walker, you just start looking down the list and it's like Channing Tindall. It's people you forget. Tay Crowder, Azeez Ojulari, of course, Monty Rice, Lorenzo Carter. And I was like, okay, it's 11 of them in the league as we speak. Like, that is mind-blowing. But as mind-blowing as that list of 11 players is, I think you make a perfect point about them being arguably better in an area. Running back you, shall we? And it's because they gave RBU the top spot to Alabama. And of course, they make the argument just in terms of Heisman Trophy winners, if you will. And, they might potentially have yet another one in the 22 draft. But I'm not going to tell you about their guys. I'm going to tell you about UGA's guys. And listen, Jarvis, that list was about 21 players long. But I'll just hit you with a few names. Herschel Walker, Harrison Hurst, Todd Gurley, no Sean Moreno, Sony Michel of recent, and Nick Chubb of recent. So help me to understand, because that's a legacy position, legacy RBU. Help me to understand how a 42-year legacy in running backs is not at the top of this list. I like that they put him at number. And wait, Jarvis, it gets better or worse depending on what you say. They didn't even get the top 5. It's Alabama, Wisconsin, LSU, Miami, and Oklahoma. I'm gonna leave it right there.
Wow. Yeah. When you think about it, like, whew, man, it like, now granted, like with the how they did it, they went back to 1998, right? Because the beginning of the BCS era. So that kind of like cuts off of, you know what I mean? So, Herschel Walker is probably arguably the best running back ever to play college football. I know a lot of people, Auburn folks will say Bo Jackson. I get it. I understand that. But, you think about, the accomplishment that Walker made and then before up until last year, he was the last guy to give that national title to the city of Athens, and more and deservedly so. And I think that's one of the things that you kind of have to take a look at from a historical standpoint. But if you're looking at just from 1998, let's just use that. You talk about Sony Michel, you talk about Nick Chubb, and how those guys have been doing, and they even taken into account the first 3 years in the NFL too. So that's something that you kind of look like, wow. Todd Gurley was like the best running back in the league for a couple of years. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, all right. So it's interesting though, because like, that was the first thing. As soon as you sent me the article, I was just like, oh yeah, Georgia has to be RBU. Like that's guaranteed, right? They've always had stables of running backs. And I think that, one of the reasons why I think that Alabama ended up at that top spot, because not a lot of the times they have a main guy. And Georgia has had so much talent at running back. Like, they've had a stable of guys that are just really good. And they end up going on to get into the NFL, and then they end up flourishing there. So if I guess I'm kind of like siding with the article, saying, okay, I get it, I understand it, but, just from historical – yeah, exactly. From a historical standpoint, it's kind of hard to disagree because, like I said, Alabama has always had those feature guys. And like you said, they've won the Heisman Trophy. So you kind of start thinking about it from just from a 30,000-foot view. Like, I get it. I understand it.
No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So no, I like what I like you said, I like the article with the exception of when I look at the top five and I do not see and I do not see Georgia even listed at the top, at the top or in the top five, like in an
Right,
honorable
exactly.
mention sort of space. I'm like, okay, I'll give you, Derrick Henry, but I won't let you forget about what Sony Michelle has been able to do, versatile, different kind of back Nick Chubb as well.
No doubt, no doubt about it. And also, Georgia got another little snub, so to speak. How the national champions come in the preseason coaches poll at number 3 behind
Right.
Alabama and Ohio State. So when you think about that, I'm just like, okay,
Wow.
what is going on here? I don't know. I don't get it. Like, I and it, I'm. But I do kind of
We do,
like I
right.
said
We get it and we don't
yeah,
get
I
it.
get it, but I don't get it because if you're going to look at it from a professional standpoint, like, okay, here are the quarterbacks that are coming
Mhm.
back. It's
Yeah,
no question, right?
yeah, that's what
Like
I took
you got
from it.
you got Bryce Young, CJ
Mhm.
Stroud, and Stetson Bennett. All right, if we're doing about that, okay, cool, I get you. But I
Mhm.
think if you're just looking from the entire team, I
Mhm.
think you have to have Georgia in a conversation in that top 2. But they fall at the 3.
Mhm.
They fall at the number 3 position. So it just seems like they just kind of looked at it from like, okay, who do they have coming back? All right,
Yeah.
here's the top 2 quarterbacks essentially going to NFL draft in 2023. So
Yeah.
yeah, let's just throw these top 2 teams out right there.
That's what I think as well. I think with Alabama, in addition to Bryce Young, you're looking at somebody like Will Anderson who can actually make the case for at least being invited to New York for the Heisman conversation.
He'll be
If
there.
everything
He'll
goes
be
as
there.
well,
Yeah, that's
exactly. If
safe.
everything goes as planned, he's going to be sitting there at least in that top five, if not shocking the world and winning, as a defensive player. But to your point, CJ Stroud also has a loaded receiver room. And so if you
Yes.
look at how they're about to run up and down up and down the field, and they're going to get tested maybe right out of the gate with Notre Dame, although I think they're going to smoke them. But when you look at, like you said, if the body of work and the primary consideration is the quarterback, which we all know it is, then yeah, you can kind of understand. But it did feel like a bit of a snub because you're like the defending champion and you can't get love at least at the 2 spot. I didn't think you were ever going to get the 1. We all knew where that was going, but the 2, that bothered me.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I definitely understand. One guy who's been feeling snubbed is the guy we just mentioned, Roquan Smith. He just requested a trade. We're gonna talk about whether or not he would look good in a Falcons uniform. That's coming up next, right here on ATL Day One's part of with Jarvis and T, part of Locked On.
Welcome back to ATL Day Ones. I am Tenitra. That is Jarvis, and we appreciate you guys for sticking around and sticking with us to the tune of almost 3,000 subscribers on YouTube on our Locked On Sports Atlanta network. Appreciate you guys for that. Also appreciate you for continuing to download the podcast wherever you get your podcast and giving us 5-star reviews. And obviously, you continue to like what we do. So we appreciate that. And we invite you to invite somebody else to check us out. And Jarvis, we would like to extend an invitation, whether you're Dog Nation or whether you're Falcons diehards, Dirty Birds, folks are a buzz today because boy, oh boy, at least on the wish list, you wish that you could get this guy who's a former Georgia standout, currently a Bear, but you want him as a Falcon. Roquan Smith earlier today took to Twitter and basically said that he was requesting a trade because he felt like he was not valued. And apparently, he and the Bears cannot get right on his contract extension, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he feels like he's not valued. He feels like his asking price and what they're willing to give him just don't mesh. And then, of course, looking around overall, he's not happy about what he's seeing with the direction of the Bears organization. So you already know. Ooh, Atlanta Twitter was a buzz. It was trend. Roquan Smith was trending seconds after he sent that tweet out, Jarvis. So we got to just ask the question and just play around with the theory of it, right? Could there be a place, even though it's a loaded linebacker room for the Falcons? Could there be a place? Because although it's loaded, Jarvis, we also talk about the fact that it is arguably the most unknown unit on the defense for the Falcons.
You know what? To be honest with you, it's unknown I'll say this: it's unknown, but I think there's some anticipation there, right? Because like you
Absolutely.
drafted a guy in Troy Anderson in the second round.
Yes.
You also have a guy who's up and coming in Michael Walker, who I've
Yes.
seen,
Yeah.
I've deemed that is my breakout player for this defense in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some anticipation there. However, you talking about a player of Roquan Smith ilk. There is a guy that is kind of sitting around chilling,
Yes.
trying to figure
Yeah.
out what's going on, and that's
Right.
his name is Deion Jones.
Yes.
And I think he wouldn't mind a fresh start. And I don't think Chicago fans would be too upset if they're able to get a guy like Deion Jones in return for Roquan Smith. Now, I'm not a salary cap expert or anything like that, but I do believe if the Chicago Bears are going to honor that request, I know they wouldn't mind getting a guy like Deion Jones in return, because I think that Deion Jones needs a fresh start. I think he
Agreed.
needs something that, kind of like a new beginning, essentially, because you talk about even Roquan Smith talked about the tradition as far as linebackers in Chicago and being drafted there. Like, you're talking about Buckets and Urlacher and all of those guys, Lance Briggs and all those guys that played there and have done great things in Chicago. I think that is something that Terry Fontenot may need to consider. But for me personally, I really am excited about what this young core brings to the table and what's ahead of us as far as looking at these guys and seeing these guys grow into their positions and whatever roles they are, they've been deemed. And so I think that, it sounds good, and I think I feel there's a way to get the trade done. However, I do like the Michael Walkers of the world. I really want to see what Troy Anderson has to bring to the table, and I wouldn't mind seeing what Rashaan Evans is going to do in his getting the second time around with DNPs.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think where we plug and play him is probably, like you said, in that Deion Jones spot, so to speak.
Right.
And I think because we know that Dean Pease uses variations. Yes, the base is 3-4, and yes, the Chicago base is 4-3. But ultimately speaking, Dean Pease is going to move everybody around anyway, and he's going to give you hybrid looks. And
You figure it out with guys like that.
Right. You totally do. You will build that scheme around him. And from
Indeed.
what I can remember, early reports of him out of Georgia and then him even up in Chicago was that he's a quick learner. I mean, he's got the talent, right? That's already there. But in addition to having that speed, that quickness, and that power, which is more along the lines of the linebackers that Dean Pease is looking for, you definitely have to at least give it a look. And when you think about the salary cap situation, you certainly know that, there may be some tweaks that need to be done, but it's not out of the question. So we will be watching to see what happens. But if the Falcons don't go that route, the Falcons nation, Falcons country needs to know that you've got a good base here that potentially is going to break out in ways that will even be unexpected by you. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about some things that could change when you have somebody like Roquan Smith coming out and saying, let me go, free me. And Kevin Durant, well, So if you want to know again about the Kevin Durant, saga, if you will, and the Roquan Smith saga and how those things might actually impact betting, Jarvis, we know that you can find out that information on BetOnline.
No doubt, because BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. If you're trying to figure out where Kevin Durant is going to end up, if you're trying to figure out whether or not Roquan Smith gets traded, if he does get traded, what team is he going to? What are the odds for that? Go to BetOnline.net. You can find it out because it's the fastest, easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events. And if you want to go to some ancillary sports, you figure that you can't make no money betting on NFL or in Major League Baseball. They have MMA, boxing, and golf just for you. So go ahead and check those guys out. Now, T, the Falcons are playing their first preseason game, right? So I went to betonline.net and saw what the over-under was. The over-under is 35.5. Ooh, I don't know. Now, if you kind of not to know whether or not you want to go to over-under, BetOnline got all the information you need. They got podcasts and everything just for you, so you can make the best informed decision, so you can make some money. So, because that's what it's all about, right? So now, Just to head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action, because Bet Online is where the game starts.
And speaking of a start of a game, Friday will be the start of game one of the preseason for the Falcons. Of course, they are heading up to Detroit to take on the Lions. And Jarvis and I had an opportunity to take a sneak peek into how they were wrapping up that second week and then moving into preparation for game day. And we talked, of course, about what we saw in Jalen Hawkins, a lot of that leadership ability that's now showing you that he's matching his on-field prowess with his off field as well. So it's really coming together for him. But another guy that we talked about, and he's one who we saw kind of bantering with Jalen on the sidelines, was Michael Walker. And so you look at Michael Walker bantering with Jalen Hawkins, but you also look at Jalen having some really intense conversation, both on the field after plays and even on the sidelines with Richie Grant. And you look and you say to yourself, we might have a solid tandem in the making here. So Jarvis, what do you think about the possibility of, young as they are, being possibly one of the best safety tandems in, dare we say it, the entire league?
You know what? I think I don't know that I can say that they're going to be the best in the league, but I think it's going to be probably one of the better safety tandems that you've seen back there, and for that have donned a Falcons uniform in quite some time, right? Because you talk about these guys, one thing that they have in common, and they've been joined at the hip just from if you just seen after practice, where it be during practice, like you mentioned, and those guys have been really kind of working together, saying, hey, we got to figure this thing out. But the similarities that I do like in these guys is both of these guys have a knack for being around the football. And we know that Jalen Hawkins, showed that last year. There were some flashes last year. And Richie Grant just recently picked off Marcus Mariota in practice. And I think that when you think about the old moniker, you practice how you play, right? And that's and when you have a guy that's constantly around the football, being in the right spot, a lot of the times when you're in where you need to be, a guy like Richie Grant is the type of guy that's going to make that play, because that's why the Falcons fell in love with him down in the Senior Bowl, because he's a ball hawking type guy. And I think that also Richie Grant, I feel like he has something to prove. Like,
no question.
Because I know he heard the naysayers last year, and because he was he got thrust into a position that he's never really played before like that in the nickel spot with Isaiah Oliver going down, and he did the best job he could do there. But now he's back at home, and he's exactly where he needs to be at that free safety spot. So I think there's a good chance that you could see something. You should see a good recipe for success for those two on the back end of that defense.
Yeah, and when you think about the best tandems in the league, and you think about a Kevin Byard or an Amani Hooker, over in Tennessee, that's sort of the bar for you, if you will, or Quandre Diggs, Jamal Adams out in Seattle. Those are sort of the bars,
indeed,
if you will. So yeah, they've got a ways to go, but who I feel like doesn't have as far to go. I believe that the corner tandem is where it's at for the Falcons. So when I look at the corner talent and the likes of a Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Peters in particular, or you look at Jair Alexander, Rasul Douglas, and then I compare them to an AJ Terrell and a Casey Hayward, I'm like, now I think that is definitely where the Falcons are going to feast. And speaking of feast, apparently a feast for one particular couple might have been about more than just food. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some GOATs who are celebrating birthdays today on the other side and for the culture right here on ATL Day One.
Final segment of ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. We just want to thank you for rocking with us throughout the entire show. You guys have been showing up and showing out for us because you've been downloading our podcast wherever you get your podcast, and you've been leaving us a 5-star review while you're there. You guys have been giving us so giving of your time. We really, really appreciate you because we're on our way to 3,000 subscribers. We ask that if you have not done that and you're watching this video or listening to this audio, go ahead and do that. Go ahead and like and subscribe to our page, on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you do those things. But this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, and the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down. Now, talked about GOAT, hanging them up. Serena Williams said that the U.S. Open will be her last match. She is hanging them up, T, and I thought it was kind of interesting because when she talked about, why and how, and just being in a mindset of she's even scared to talk about it, like even with her husband. Like she's like the only person she's really been able to open up about it to was her therapist. And you kind of think about this, like, wow, like you can't even talk about that with your significant other. So it just lets you know that she's a competitor and she wants to, continue to play. But, she's at a space now where she's a mom. Olympia is asking for, a little sister or a little brother. So, she thinks it's time to go ahead and kind of focus on those things and, and still get money.
Exactly. Because when you talk about her brand as well, it's like she is in so many different ventures. She and her sister Venus still have an interest in the Miami Dolphins. And I mean, she's even a certified nail technician now. Not that she does anything with it, but who knows? She may
we
want
know
to start
Serena
a
ain't going
line
around
of,
doing no nails at folks' houses.
no, not at all. She may want to start a line of nail polish for all we know. But I
Right.
think when she says evolving into other areas, yes, it's about, I'm sure, being a more present mom, maybe being a more present wife. But I also think it's because there are going to be some other opportunities that have probably been presented to her. And I think about the work that maybe she did on the King Richard movie and being a consultant to Will Smith. And she has had some guest appearances on TV before. So I said, wouldn't be surprised if I saw her go into maybe that executive producer space, if you will.
Right.
And if they want to bring her in on ESPN or wherever to do some commentating for Wimbledon or for the US Open or something down the road, I feel like she can more than do that as well. I think Serena is one of those people who literally has the world at her feet and the world is her oyster and she can do whatever she wants. I'm just glad that she allowed us to be a part of her world in some way, shape, or form and allowed us to just watch that greatness for 20 plus years. I mean, that is amazing to think that we've been able to watch her be great for that long. And I just feel like, especially when you're talking about the open court era, but I would even say overall, because the competition has gotten wider and fiercer
Indeed.
since I believe Margaret Court did 24, Serena's 23. Man, listen, the competition to me much fiercer than it ever was back then, which makes her the GOAT of tennis and arguably one of the best all around individual athletes that we've ever seen.
No doubt about it, because I don't think that, her continuing to chase that record would do her any good, because like I said, I already think that she's one of the best individual athletes of all time in my eyes. Like when you talk about playing individual sports, even in team sports, like she's just an amazing. You talking about starting and playing professionally at 14 and she's 40 now. Like I can imagine playing that long. My goodness, like that's a long time to be out there. So
coming
26
back from having a
years.
child. And you look at all of the young ladies over the years, not just African American girls, but girls all around the world who look up to her, and especially, of course, the girls of color saying, "Hey, wow, if she can do it, then certainly I can." So she's very much like a Tiger Woods, both she and her sister, who got a lot of people interested in tennis who otherwise would not have paid attention to it.
No doubt about it. Hey. See Coco Golf if you want to understand the legacy that she's left.
That looks like a carbon copy of Serena.
Indeed. But speaking of carbon copy, we talk about some coffee. How about that? It just rhymes with it. It just it has a nice little ring to it. There's no real segue for that, T. But tell the folks about Coffee AM.
But technically there could be, because you guys can be a carbon copy of Jarvis if you will just go out and get that Coffee AM, because Jarvis talks about the coffee aspect of it all the time, right? Like it really keeps him going, because he has started on a health journey this year that has also gotten him up at the crack of dawn. See, I've been cracking the dawn in it for 4 years, so it's all good.
Ain't nothing new to you.
So, that Coffee AM is so critical to him. And of course, we both want to always support Atlanta-based organizations, Atlanta-based companies. And why not? With a small batch, best roaster in the country, right in your backyard. Perfect. And if you think about this, all of us like freshness in anything, our drinks, our food, or what have you. So just to think about the fact that this coffee is shipped the same day or close to it from when it's roasted, right? That's a wonderful thing. And if you think about current crop, specialty grade coffee, the fact that they go with direct fair trade, and even organic for those of you who are super healthy, this is the place for you. So if you want to know more about their extensive menu, then you go to coffeeam.com. And if you put in /locked on, that's where you get a treat from us. And that is 15% off your first order. So again, it's a full menu of coffees. That's Jarvis's, how do we say, cup of coffee. And
Right,
then
yeah.
for teas, it's my cup of tea. And then, of course, gift sets that you can get there as well. Again, it's a coffeeam.com/locked on. Get your 15% and get yourself going, especially your parents, kids back at school. We know you need a jolt.
No doubt about it. We all need that joke early in the morning to get our day started. Now, T, when you talk about getting hitched, there's this website by the name of Hinge. There's these two people that met on that particular website. You know, we've been having offline conversations about dating sites. And we're not going to get into that because we don't have time. Sorry. We're not going to talk about T's love life on our show today. Not today. All right. Now, this particular couple had been planning to get together, and a couple times, the guy ended up canceling on it. So he was calling to see if he can set something else up, but the young ladies thought that he was calling to cancel again, and she kind of cut him off. Was just like, look, bruh, if you calling me to cancel again, don't even worry about, lose my number and don't call me no more. And of course he obliged because he wanted to go ahead and see what's going on.
Right.
So he said, meet me in 5 minutes in the Popeyes parking lot. So essentially they end up falling in love over a 2-piece spicy tea. Like, how about that for a love story?
Well, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to keep it brief because I know there's something else that we would love to get to. But
would you have gone? No, hold on. Would you have gone obliged and said, "Okay, I'll meet you in the Popeyes parking lot"?
That's what I was going to keep it short and say. I would just be still single.
Oh,
I would just, because I'm not going to the Popeyes parking lot to meet you. I'm just not.
To find the LOML, like, not you can't. Oh wow, man.
So okay. You want me to think my LOML is in the Popeyes parking lot? I'm just not thinking that's where dude is. I'm just not. And I'm just not going to back away from that. But what I will pull up on is Jarvis's favorite player who is enjoying a 55th birthday.
Yes.
The one, the only Deion Sanders. That's one GOAT that we want to shout out. And then another GOAT, rest in peace, to Miss Whitney Houston, who left us over a decade ago. That's crazy.
Time's going by so fast. My goodness.
Right.
10 years already? Wow.
59. She would have been 59. So, yeah, Jarvis, shout out real quick to your guy, Deion Sanders. One question for you. I'll take it with, and then we'll get out of here. Your favorite Deion moment?
Wow. Oh, it has to be when he came back to the Falcons and as with the 49ers, and he was going against Andre Rison, and then he was like, this is my house. I built this house. And then he ended up getting into the fight with Andre Rison on the field, which was kind of like, when you look back at it, it's just like, bruh, what were y'all doing? Y'all weren't really doing nothing like that. But yeah, I think that just the swag that Prime played with, like, he was so before his time. But yeah, absolutely, hands down, my favorite player of all time in any sport. Like, Prime is my dude. Deion is my dude. So happy birthday, my man.
Happy birthday, and happy heavenly birthday to Whitney Houston. I always, whenever I think of her, and it's a quick thought, all I do is think about that video with I'm Every Woman, where she had Shaka Khan and she had TLC. Nice. She had to be the most beautiful pregnant lady I've ever seen in my entire life.
Yes.
Just gorgeous, and just a voice that, man, I don't know if we'll ever hear the likes of again. So appreciate the opportunity that we had to hear her, and also to watch Deion play in his prime was an amazing thing. And hopefully you guys will come back tomorrow and check us out when hopefully we'll talk about the Braves stepping up and kind of showing you that they can be prime time too, right? Get that W, get back on track on the road. And listen, we'll be on the Roquan Smith watch just like you guys. So if there are any updates to that story, we'll get it to you guys tomorrow. And again, always check us out first, and then make your second checkout A to Z with Mark Zeno. Thanks again for stopping by, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Y'all come back now, you hear?